All right. Hello, everyone. Oh, I haven't actually loaded up the thingy. All right. It's always fun coming back to this, to be honest. Seeing it expand, grow, and become quite wild. I imagine that eventually at some point I will end up uploading this somewhere, and people can like go through it and explore it. I imagine that would be quite interesting. Oh yeah, I remember this stuff. Alright, so this time around, I think... I had an idea that I wanted to explore a bit, but I suppose I can't remember it anymore, so never mind. Anyway, okay. So what should I be doing today? I'm kind of figuring out a bit more about just the general food situation, I suppose, of the law. Oh, right, I remember. Yes, this is related to this. Okay, so in the past, I've talked about. Let's see. So you've got the surface where all the cultivated plants live, and all the cultivated animals and such. You know, it's all very, very organized and peaceful, and kind of well, I wouldn't necessarily say peaceful, but it's all organized and well, yeah, cultivated and kept in check, kind of, by the walking nest. Why did I close that off? Yeah. However, naturally, nature doesn't really like to be controlled usually, and basically, if there's any gaps at all in your plans and such, nature will find a way to exploit it, as I'm sure gardeners will have experienced well enough with those hardy weeds that just keep coming back. So too does A7 have nature that doesn't want to be controlled, really. Now, the surface is very much regulated by the walking nest a lot of the time. And it then, because that's where it has easy access to, it's a sizable creature, so it can actually, yeah, it can manage the surface, including through its various meddlings with the natural environment. However, underground, which, you know, as I'm developing this stuff more and more, seems to be becoming more and more prevalent, underground life and existence and such, which I'm pretty happy with, because it leads nicely into this. So basically, yeah, you've got basically like probably pretty significant cave systems underneath A7 at least, many of which will have rivers of light flowing through them, and therefore they can sustain plant life, like photosynthesizing life, and anything that lives off of it. So you've got this entire ecosystem that is that's basically like underground. I don't know why I'm making one of those trees, but I'm just making things. yeah, so you've got an entire ecosystem underground, and this ecosystem is much more separate from the walking nest. So the walking nest's influence doesn't really reach into the depths. Welcome back, Arc Phoenix. It's always good to have you. And yeah, I'm really starting to enjoy the prospects of this underground ecosystem. But yeah, so as I was saying, basically the underground ecosystem will have little influence from the walking nest, which means that it's kind of separate from the cultivation and it's much more a natural ecosystem. So everything might fit into place less neatly, but also doesn't need constant maintenance in a sense to keep it like that. Now, naturally, things from the underground ecosystems may wish to make use of the very nicely cultivated surface areas, because it's so cultivated, it's able to produce more, and in a sense, and it's more exploitable. Basically, going to the surface can provide for easy meals for certain creatures. So yeah, they will want to go to the surface at times, and some plants might even want to try and colonize the surface. But of course, the walking nest doesn't want that. So the interesting thought I had was, well, for one, it'll try and cultivate the surface to fight that to a degree. But the walking nest has less influence over the species that exist on the surface than it does over the species that are inside itself, that are part of its own, part of its own body in a sense. And this is kind of where an interesting thought regarding to lore comes in. So, with lore being kind of this expeditionary species that tends to go out for long periods of time and basically explore the environment, they would be quite useful to root out new species that aren't supposed to be up there, and to help with the cultivation of the surface. Which basically means that for lore, well, one of the most effective ways of doing that is probably by making... Oh, I'm just going to say it. Basically, to lore, most things that are that grow underground, most species that live underground and grow underground, are bloody delicious. Like they might not be as nutritionally complete in a sense as the food that they can get on the surface. But I do imagine that it's kind of like a luxury treat in a sense. So as soon as they see something that is foreign, something that is not part of the surface bio or ecology, they will have great incentives to hunt that down, to harvest that, to gather that, and to then, to just eat it, or to bring it back to the walking nest to share with others, or even just wait to get to the nest to eat it then, so that others can experience it with you because of the whole hive mind situation. Now, I don't imagine that lore would be all too keen to actually venture into these underground systems, because at least to a lore, the underground is much more hostile than the above ground. Above ground, low basically have no natural predators. Things, I mean, if things above ground were to eat any part of the walking nest, any member species of the walking nest, that would be detrimental to the walking nest. It would kind of be like installing bear traps in your garden. You know, like, uh, and then stepping in them. Like, you'd just be hurting yourself for no good reason whatsoever. So yeah, like the cultivated surface is generally quite safe for lore. It's just that whenever things come from the underground to the surface, lore have an incentive to get rid of them. And because these individuals are likely to not leave the caverns in large numbers, just because of the risks of the surface, and there's probably only a few species that are specialized to go outside. Low are likely to be able to actually successfully hunt them down. But going into the caverns, for one, there's not much point for low to go into the caves and into the underground, because the walking nest doesn't really gain much from that. And like the lore, they're not plentiful enough to actually get rid of all of the underground ecosystems. Because I think there's only roughly about 2,000 lore. A bit less than that at any given time, at least during the walking nest period. Yeah. Okay. I think that covers that part of things. So yeah, since we've gotten to the topic of food, this is a part where I've actually been struggling a bit for a while now, just because I don't think I quite understand enough about nutrition to be able to figure out what actually would be like a full and sustaining diet. So like, I understand that generally like root vegetables are generally quite a staple in a lot of cultures and situations. Meat is probably, you know, pretty reasonable. Then probably some type of fruits. But the specifics of it all is a bit tricky. Like how much does a person eat? How varied does the food need to be? Because like, I imagine I can't just have them have like 3 types of food. That would not be varied enough at all. Yeah. So I have in the past made at least one type of food already in the field of the root vegetables or something like that. And it's basically a... Ooh, now I've got to remember something specific. I've got it written in some like physical notes somewhere, but I haven't got those handy at the moment, and I don't really want to interrupt the stream to figure it out. But it's a type of a vegetable that kind of does a similar thing to potatoes. We've got kind of these storage thingies, I think, if I'm correct, or it's like a centralized root, more like a beet or something like that. I'm not too sure. I mean, we can have both, but yeah. And then on the surface, it's basically almost like this kind of like root system. Um, it's kind of it's almost like an upside down plant, because what it does is it sits in puddles, and it kind of like, yeah, I think it had like a centralized organ at least. Yeah. So what it does is, well, it had a lot of little, I can't remember the specifics, but anyway, it's kind of like sucks up the water and stores it in underground little reservoirs, kind of, and basically absorbs all of the light from that. So it keeps absorbing it until the light in it has been completely drained, and in that way it's kind of a really effective photosynthesizer. And yeah, the roots of that, kind of like the bits that absorb, that the water gets like absorbed into, those would kind of be like the roots vegetables that store the energy and such. But now that I'm talking about this like this, that doesn't necessarily make the most sense yet. However, if these kind of root things, yeah, so I think it makes more sense if it's kind of like the radish situation. Yeah. There might be multi-bulb versions, but the radish one makes more sense at the moment. So now I imagine that you'd have a case where right, the inside might be sort of like this. So possibly a lot of hairs, kind of like a kiwi or something like that, that will photosynthesize. But basically, like, I can do better. Basically, water goes in there. It goes into the middle, gets photosynthesized, and then the energy that gets built up, basically, then gets stored around the center. Which basically means that you can dig this up. And you basically have... Does that make sense? The middle might actually be more like a juicy fruit. Like... See, this is... It's tricky because I don't know quite enough, but I think it might make more sense if this is sort of like a juicy, fleshy bit, if that makes sense. Almost fruit-like, but I don't think it has any point. It wouldn't be sweet. Yeah, it definitely wouldn't be sweet because it's not a fruit. Yeah. Yeah, so I guess it would be kind of like a juicy vegetable in the middle. Like really almost like wet and almost soggy. But it would be all like compartmentalized, and basically like the liquid with the light would pass through. But most other things would probably be filtered out in here. Or might not even enter through here. And so this would actually be quite a good source of safe water. And then this bit around here would probably be like a hard, pretty efficient energy storage thing, akin to like potatoes and other roots. Yeah, and I can't really comment on what the flavor of that would be like. But it would probably be quite Quite a starchy thing. Maybe. Man, I really know too little about plants. It would be a good, nutritious root vegetable. Okay. Now, another thought that I had was because the surface kind of gets cultivated, it will likely have extra benefits for lore. So, and for the walking nest, because this also has to be important for the walking nest and such. So one plant that I had thought of is kind of a large water catching tree. So pretty large, which, just to indicate the water catching part, the rest would probably be trunk and made to be very sturdy so that it doesn't fall over and such. Which produces a fruiting body of probably considerable size. Which isn't actually useful for the lore, but it is something that would, for one, help this plant reproduce, but also would give a certain amount of yeah, like a concentrated energy source kind of for the walking hive. And the thought is then that these also have some sort of, I mean, they could have like little fruits down here for the lore to harvest. Basically to act as a appealing thing for the lore. So basically something to make them really want to come over, in a sense. So they lore come over, take some of the fruit. Remember that is where this thing is, and so we'll bring that knowledge back to the walking nest. The walking nest can then chart a course to it and eat it. Not saying that is what its mouth looks like, but you know. It's all indicatory, if that's even a word. Indicative, I think the word is. Cool, so, and I imagine that this might be a strategy used by a reasonable amount of plants. Now, this kind of strategy is probably quite vulnerable to, you know, the kind of opportunistic underground dwellers. So they might have, I mean, it might just be a case that if these get harvested, then, oh well, too bad, you're not going to be found as easily, and it might even not be the best place to go, because other things might have come to eat this giant fruit somehow, or something like that. Yeah. So that would be a nice fruity thingamajig. Animals I've been quite hesitant about working on for now. Just because it's kind of hard to think about them, so, especially because I can't really draw them. I mean, you've seen my drawings; they are functional at best. Like with plants, I can kind of make like graph-like, you know, indications of them. Oh, I talked about some of this stuff before. Alright, that was about the dirt and such. I'm just confusing myself. Yeah. I'm just having a bit of a think here. So... search, yeah. Now, because this is a cultivated landscape. I do imagine that fruit that's... Yeah, I think in a sense actually that on the surface everything that is food for lore might actually be a type of fruit or a type of meat. Even this thingy might be a case that it also works, yeah, basically like potatoes and such, where basically like you eat a bunch of it, and like a lore may eat, you know, say, let's draw another one. That's ugly. You know, like a lore might, for example, eat this much of it, and then chuck this under the ground. That then might still bloom into, well, it wouldn't bloom like that, but might bloom into another plant like it, which would help with, which might kind of help with reproduction, or the act of digging it out causes it to spread its pollen somehow, or something along those lines. I imagine that everything has kind of like that kind of cycle. So, so cultivated nature, provides for the nest. One way or another. Is not actually, it's probably not harmed by the nest. Oh, that's cool. Can I read that? No, I cannot. Nah. But yeah, maybe helped by the walking nest. Let's make that a bit more. No, that's fine. So basically, so by this, the second point, I basically if actions by the walking nest cause the death of a plant, then that also has to lead to the reproduction of that plant, if that makes sense. Yeah. I imagine with the animals it might be a bit different. Because animals just gonna work different in that aspect. But they might be more plentiful than they need to be sustainable, and so the walking nest can survive off of that. Okay. Okay. So yeah, you've got... You've got the big tree. That's not going to be big enough for a sizable list. So you've got the big tree fruit. You've got the pool root thing. Bulb. Just meat. And this is hard without the prerequisite knowledge. Okay, this subject I am definitely struggling a bit more with, but I do want to kind of be able to push through this. To be able to make it through this, because this is kind of very vital for getting into culture building. Just a moment, I'm just gonna drink something. Otherwise, I might dehydrate. Okay. So... So the pool root thing, I imagine, might be kind of like a staple food. Meat is probably... I can probably divide that into big game and if I'm not mistaking the terms of these, but basically, like like big animals and small animals. So for the big animals, I'm thinking something along the lines of anywhere between like boar-sized, like pig, and like I don't know, moose. If there's, there might even be bigger things like elephants or some elephant-sized things or something like that. I've not quite decided on that kind of stuff yet. And small game is more like the basically anything you can catch with your bare hands. I'm not saying it's easy, but anything that you can catch with your bare hands and control with your bare hands. Anything bigger than that is probably going to be big game. So small game is probably relatively plentiful in the menu. And big game meat is probably uncommon. Simply from the fact that small game is going to be more prevalent and easier to catch than big game. Actually, here's an interesting thought. At least I think it's interesting. So animals are definitely going to be in the cultivated area because that's, yeah. However, basically having law predate on the fauna that's supposed to maintain the environment doesn't seem very smart, because that's going to be the role of the fauna here. It's basically an automated system for maintaining the cultivated land, helping with stuff like reproduction, helping to a degree with keeping invasive species out, ensuring that the environment is right for the plants that need to be grown and stuff like that. So ideally, cultivated fauna is not prey. Yeah. Which means that they might get most of their meat, if not all of their meat, from adventurous cave dwellers. From the types of animals that come to the surface. At least during the period of the walking nest. Afterwards, they might become a little bit more desperate and start digging into other things, but yeah. Yeah, so let's add a modifier here of invasive meat. Which probably means that if something like a cave is discovered, that would probably mean that they might actually set camp up around there somewhere, to look for stragglers and for any on the surface, and might even have small, short expeditions in to get some meat. But they wouldn't go deep. They definitely wouldn't go deep, because going deep means death, especially for the smaller expeditions that would be going out. Yeah. Okay. That's neat. Okay. Yeah. Okay. So basically, the kinds of fruits, or the kinds of food that plants and trees and such can provide, at least during the walking nest period. So there is this signal fruit, which is like the big tree fruit. There's reproductive fruit. which is... It's kind of like... You might think of, for example, berries and more traditional... Is that even... I'm still getting used to writing in it with a tablet. But yeah, more traditional fruits. I'm also trying to be a bit quick about writing and such, so I don't linger on it too long. Berries and traditional fruits, those would be more the reproductive fruits. So basically, Law eat them and poop out the seeds, which then causes, you know, benefits. Okay. And then there's just a purely... then there's some nutrient fruits, which I think might be the pull root thing bulb. So these don't necessarily gain anything from being eaten. But there might be certain behaviors from law that mean that when they are eaten, it doesn't mean that they are hard. They are... that is like the end of a line. And that's why they're also quite nutritious. So these are completely cultivated. And they might actually need law to actively decide, like as an intellectual decision, to plant these. So they are probably the most nutritious. They might not be the most tasty, but they are going to be the most nutritiously complete in a lot of ways, and are likely going to be more... they may be less like... They may be less like pure energy, like fruits might be. And maybe a little bit less tasty. But they are going to have more like valuable nutrients and such in them. Yeah. So signal fruits are probably the best tasting, because the signal fruits, the only thing that signal fruits care about is, hey, notice me, so that the lure can come over there and make sure that this is the route that the walking nest takes. And if the walking nest takes this route, it means that it's more likely that this specific plant gets to reproduce. Yeah, because it uses the walking nest itself to reproduce. Reproductive fruits? Yeah, reproductive fruits will want to be tasty, but it also has some incentive to be at least somewhat nutritious in a sense, I think. Because it basically wants to produce... I'm not too sure. Why are different fruits differently nutritious? That is an interesting question. Oh, we've got the internet. Let's ask that exact question. Why are fruits nutritious? Let's have a look. Yeah, I should have seen that coming. What do fruits gain from being nutritious? Okay, I'm starting to think that this is okay. So let's see. Nitrogen helps above ground leafy growths and gives dark green colors to leaves, so that helps with that stuff. Okay. Earth phosphorus flowers could not form. Okay, but why? Okay, I'm just gonna go on a tangent here because I'm learning things from a kid's website. Okay, phosphorus encourages plant cell division. Without phosphorus, flowers and seeds could not form. Phosphorus also helps with root growth and protect disease. So I imagine that it's kind of like a structural thing. Increases the plant's resistance to disease, encourages root growth, but doesn't need to grow. Okay, so nutrients are seem to be primarily a side effect of things. Especially against disease and such. And to, like, do its basic function. Okay. Right. So, I think... I've got it. Okay. I think the reason why reproductive fruits are more nutritious than signal fruits is because reproductive fruits actually go through a cycle. So, let's see. Let's write it on this line. Let's draw it on this line. So, you know, for example, with some plants, you might, you know, first have, I want to do this a bit quicker. You know, you might have a flower first, so that it can be pollinated. Then that flower kind of transforms, often starting to die off and such, into the fruit until there's only the fruit. So I imagine that in the process of the flower turning into the fruit, that the various processes that are required in that and that happen in that kind of infuse nutrients into the fruit, because there's a more complex soup of processes going on. More different nutrients are being used to achieve the results. But signal fruits, I mean, they're just growths, basically. Like you can basically just see them as they can just be like singular bodies of just tasty. Like their skin might have some variance to basically be an easier indicator that, hey, I am here. You know, it might have some canals for like light, for example, like light water to pass through. But mostly they are just homogeneous inside, and though wouldn't necessarily be very nutritious. It'd be very even. They probably, yeah, they're tasty, but probably not super nutritious. And then nutrient fruits aren't necessarily the most tasty out there. Like, they're not like, you know, ooh, yum, 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 I'm a snack on these. But they are the most nutritious, and they actually require investment from lure to keep going. And nutrient fruits would probably also be the first plants to turn into actually become agricultural products. Because lure kind of already do that. Except a bit less organized than you would probably see with agriculture. Yeah. I think that this is a decent way to go about it for now. Okay. Now I'm just thinking. How much of each of these? So I imagine it's signal fruits. There can probably be quite a lot of different plants that go for signal, that make signal fruits. Yeah. I don't want the ecosystem to become too bland though. So there'll probably be chains of production going on in order to get to where things need to be. So let's go here. So you've got, this is an idealized idea of the cultivated landscape. So you've got the walking nest at the very top. Okay. So some plants, yeah, so basically the signal plants will want to feed directly into the walking nest. Yeah, so signal plants are generally like the ones who gain something from the interaction with the walking nest directly. So they want to basically like call over the walking nest. Like, they're basically trying to lure in the walking nest, and to do that you have to give signal fruits to the lure. Then underneath that, then you've got lure, who are kind of part of the walking nest, but not direct, you know, yeah. Then you've got the reproductive fruit plants. So they kind of like gain benefit, or give benefits to the lure and gain benefits from the lure. Well, I'm not sure what I'm actually doing with this graph. Turns out that my headspace might not be entirely here for this. Okay, let's just draw a line between these. So fruits, and signal. Just so that if I look back, I don't have to go mad. Okay. Yeah. And then you've got the nutrition. So the nutrient plants. Hmm. Yeah, so maybe something like this actually. And reproductive. Cool. Cool. Now there'll probably also be wait a minute. Ah. There'll be independent animals which also help them. Actually. Okay, I'm just figuring this out. So this would be, yeah, so they wouldn't help with the reproduction directly, like the spreading and such, but they would help with the fertilization, the independent animals, with their signal fruits. Yeah. Let's see, the nutrient plants. Yeah. And then there are that are just kind of like food for the independent animals. So in this setup, there's basically no carnivores. In the ideal cultivated setup, you've only got herbivorous animals because carnivory is kind of wasteful in kind of like a setup like this. Yeah. So independent animals will basically help with regulating the plants, and then there's some plants as well that feed the independent animals, and then the law are basically kind of sustained by the plants that live there in actually probably similar ways to the independent animals. Actually, in a sense, like you could almost see the independent animals and the law as being similar and being part of the same group, except that law are of course not independent. But functionally they are probably similar, except that the independent animals have some different functions and will help different plants and eat different plants and such. But all of them together basically create like a well-managed and healthy ecosystem. Well, a well-cultivated ecosystem that is very productive and can support itself and a quite sizable superorganism. Now, of course, almost all of these parts, actually, I would imagine even all of these parts, even the walking nest to a degree, get exploited in some sense or another by opportunistic underground creatures. Yeah. But yeah, I am able to tell that this session I have not had all that much energy, and my energy is wavering. So I am going to call it here because it has been an hour. And, you know, I just wanted to get this sorted out so that I have at least something to conclude on. Yeah. So I guess I can kind of like potentially start filling in some of these spots and just create a bit of a web maybe next time. We'll see. Thank you, Arcphoenix. Yeah, a bit of a quieter episode, which is fine sometimes, you know. Like, I'm going to be doing this. I mean, I'm going to be trying to do this every week. Sometimes things happen. But I do try and basically... I don't actually know what time it is in other places, but basically I try and start at the same time weekly on a... Yeah. Basically I try and start to have a stream at 7 PM New Zealand time every Tuesday, which, well, we'll see how that goes. I've been missing a few of those, but that's mostly because personal life, you know, life kind of happens. And maybe if at some point, you know, more people start to actually be here and enjoy this and such, I will make life adhere more to this schedule rather than have this schedule be changed by life, you know? Anyway, I think that is going to be all for it, so I'm going to leave it on these funky beats. And goodbye, and until next time.